What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MacMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic. And today I'm diving headfirst into the Gorge. That's probably not a smart thing to do because I don't know how deep it is, but uh, actually I don't have a life. I'm just diving headfirst into a gorge is a really stupid thing to do, so don't do it. Anyway, it's a movie. It's on Apple Plus. But before we dive into the Gorge, if you could click like and subscribe, I'm doing that now, where I remind people because it seems like everybody's running away from DEI, and I'm a blind film critic, and I'm here to talk about audio description and accessibility. And well, there really aren't a lot of me. So while everybody's running from the burning building, I'm asking you to run into it and stop the fire that was set this year for some reason. So yeah, we're going to talk about Miles Teller, Anya Taylor-Joy, and Scott Derrickson's new movie. Sigourney Weaver's here also, so solid cast. It's on Apple Plus. They're not even trying to give movies theatrical releases anymore. Last year did not go well for them. Nothing popped in the theaters for Apple. They tried. And then they had these really long, because they had to agree to these like really long windows. So it felt even longer. Like some of the other studios were getting out content quicker because they didn't have to make agreements with other people. But like Fly Me to the Moon was theatrically released in July and didn't hit Apple until December, you know? But like there were other movies from around that same time period that had already hit streaming. Like Despicable Me 4 was already on streaming by that point. Deadpool Wolverine was already on streaming by that point. You know what I'm saying? Like it was already, it's like, why are you so late? Like, why are you later than everything else? So now they're just back to their thing again. And is The Gorge worth your time? Well, that's a tough call. I don't know, man. I've struggled with this. There are parts of this where it's like, well, that's well directed, well, that's cool. But then there are other things where it's like, why is this movie so long? Like, it's essentially just two people, and it seems like they're struggling for plot and for purpose. At the beginning, you're going to have a lot explained to you because there's a thing, and the exposition is needed because again, this thing doesn't actually exist in the real world and has no real world counterpart. So you're introduced to people. They need snipers essentially, and they need really good snipers for this job. So we see a sniper shot at the beginning, which bleeds into an eventual job interview for Miles Teller. And Sigourney Weaver is conducting the interview and asking him all these weird questions. And she offers him this job. And he goes out there, and the guy he's replacing gives him sort of like the rundown. And he acknowledges, he's like, so basically we're playing like a really long game of telephone. It's like this super secretive thing. And he's like, no, what I'm telling you is that since then there have been 9 Russian prime ministers and 13 presidents, and none of them have known about the Gorge. And Miles Teller's like, oh shit, okay, well, I guess I'm special then. And I got here and I didn't even need to get smacked in the face by J.K. Simmons multiple times, and I'm already, learning the deepest, darkest secrets. He So he gets left behind at the gorge, which is a hole in the ground. From what I can tell, I'm blind, so this is what I got from all of the descriptions and everything. It's a hole in the ground, and they built walls around it. It opened up somewhere around, what do you say, like World War II, I think is the description. Although again, it's like a game of telephone, so it could have opened whenever, and somebody just said whenever it opened. And they have 2 walls, which I didn't understand because I was like, shouldn't it be fully encircled? Shouldn't there be like a north, south? Or is it, or do you, at some point, is it like circular and we're just going east and west, and then you have to monitor sort of like the northeast-ish and the southeast-ish side of your wall, like it circles. Anyway, that seems like a lot of area to cover. I'm hoping, I mean, it is a gorge. It seems like for two people, we're asking a lot. Anyway, um, but they're warned, don't the things that come out, and they're like, well, the walls are scalable, and they're kind of old walls, and they're trying to just keep them, whatever's in there, out of the walls. And eventually you'll see there are creatures that reminded me of the scenes in like World War Z where the zombies are like trying to climb over the wall, a little bit of that. uh and our intrepid snipers are trying to like keep these things down and off, and but as the events occur, they're the only two people who are there, which I also didn't understand because they have to sleep at some point. um so there's no like rotating shift. I feel like there should be more people in this cast, is what I'm saying. I feel like there should be like tag, you're it, you know what I'm saying? Like, because snipers are gonna get tired at some point, and then who's watching it, you know? But they, so they just, I guess, sleep, and then God watches it. I don't know. They they fall in love. I don't know how, man. They're like on opposite ends of the thing, and there ends up becoming like a romantic storyline to this, which probably is the weakest element of this movie because it tries to start like becoming another genre altogether. And I respect Scott Derrickson as a director because he tries to bring out these human elements in his stories. This is what usually makes his films work. This is what made The Black Phone really good, is that it wasn't just a straight up horror movie. It wasn't just straight up a scary movie full of jump scares. It had a story behind it. It had a mystery. It had acting. It actually had characters, and they're trying to do that here. It's just that the plot doesn't really lend itself easily to it, so they have to go about it in the weirdest ways possible. And eventually they'll learn about maybe a little bit more about the truth about the gorge, and maybe some more interesting things about the gorge. And is there a conspiracy surrounding the gorge? What is the gorge? Who's in the gorge? Is all of the stories that have been told for all of those years true? Why do they call them the Hollow Men that come out of the gorge? What is going on in the gorge? And I don't want to spoil any of that because that's like the whole purpose for watching the movie. I'm willing to spoil up to the point of this also becomes a romance, just so that, because so it's kind of like a lot of the movie is these two, Miles and Anya. Um, and they kind of like hold up signs and write to each other, and I guess they use the scope to see each other's messages. It's all right. It's just a little long. It's a little long. It's watered down with this romantic plot that doesn't quite work. It's the kind of thing that you want it to have. I want to keep the potential mystery conspiracy of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's interesting. That's intriguing. Them having any sort of dynamic and relationship is interesting because they're on two other sides of the wall. How Miles Teller solves that really quickly is kind of like turn your brain off and just go with it. It's just kind of like, well, they did that. I guess we just have to accept that. So, because I guess the walls don't connect. This is one of the problems I have with like understanding about a north and south wall, is the fact that for Miles to get to Anya, he has to come out with a very specific way of doing it. And if the walls encircled it completely, then they would have a connected part at some point. He wouldn't need to do what he does. So that's why I'm a little confused. Again, Could be the blind thing, could be whatever, but not me not being able to actually visually see the wall and the audio description. I thought the audio description was pretty good, mainly with regard to the Hollow Men, who are scary horror creatures when they come out eventually. So this movie walks a fine line between wanting to be horror, science fiction, and romance. Throw those three things together in a pot and stir it around vigorously, and you've got the Gorge. It ends up being okay. Like, I'm not going to Apple's output last year was not great, although I actually did enjoy most of their films. But I don't. Fancy Dance was my favorite thing that Apple did last year in terms of film, and that was like their least seen movie. So I didn't hate Wolves or Instigators or Fly Me to the Moon, but Argyle was so this is better than Argyle. So we're already starting off the year better, because I'm definitively willing to throw that stake down and say this is better than Argyle. And also Argyle was long. Argyle didn't know what kind of movie it wanted to be. The Gorge is a little bit less of that. It's not that it doesn't know what kind of movie it wants to be. It's trying to be too much of it. It's stretching a story that doesn't need to be stretched. It's not throwing too many things into the fire. It's just then stretching those few things out, because for some reason Scott Derrickson thinks that we want to have a movie that's slightly over 2 hours. I don't know why he thinks that. Black Phone was like 90 minutes. I think this is like a 90-minute movie, if we're being honest. Usually when you have these sniper movies like The Wall with Aaron Taylor Johnson and John Cena, they move pretty quickly. It's a limited location film and limited cast. So to try to stretch it for as long as humanly possible is just going to drag your film out. And you need to cut to the chase a little bit more. So, The Gorge. The audio description's good. The movie is okay. And we'll see where it lands at the end of the year. It's not going to be high on the list. It's not going to be high on really anybody's list. But I'm still hopeful for Scott Derrickson directing things, because, again, Black Phone was like top 10 for me in 2021 that year came out. I was really surprised by how much I liked Black Phone. Like, to put it in my top 10, I saw that. I've seen that movie a couple times, and I don't know why. I love that movie though. And I wanted this from The Gorge. I was really excited because I was like, oh, this is Scott Derrickson's follow-up to The Black Phone, and it just isn't there. So I'm going to give The Gorge a C+. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And remember, inclusivity is not a bad word. It just means to include, or inclusion. I'll see you guys on the other side.